37.
I got another one from Joel Taylor that's 12 out of 22, which is very interesting. I'll share that with you. Brent?
So what's the tuning on this thing we're listening to, Jonathan?
I'm sure this is just
This is a weird tuning. It's a
Just?
15 limit subharmonic plus 1 is what he's calling this. It says so right there.
That's interesting.
This is it right here? That's what we're hearing?
Yeah. I just saw it while you were eating and booting it up.
A 15 limit plus 1 additional note.
Is that a random additional note or?
Obviously not.
It says, out of the 10 note scale, I picked 6 notes at a time to play with, then moved to another 6 note set. Well, he doesn't say much about it, that's it. The undertone series to the 15 limit plus 1 additional note. Yeah.
Say it again because I kind of got distracted. So
That's what we're listening to.
Well, first
So
of all,
remember I
explain
showed-
what a limit is to and
Okay, remember I told you that Parch was based on just intonation, which is notes of the harmonic series. So if you start with a 4th harmonic, which is the same as 1 and 2 and then 4 and 8 and 16, they're all the same note. Okay, that's just octaves. So if you start in 4, 5, 6 is really your harmonic series. So if I sing the 4th harmonic, and I go 4, 5, 6, I'm going.
It's a major tray.
Really? Yeah. And then, now if I go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that's 4, 5, 6,
You know what?
7, 8.
We're not going to pick that up on the video with this playing in the background.
Sure we will.
Yeah?
That'll
so you wrote
chime
this
right
piece?
through.
You wrote this piece?
No, this
That's
is
me.
Brent Rogers.
Oh.
he wrote this software.
I wrote that.
That's for
Anyway, we're doing 3 things at once here.
Yeah, I just
Yeah, 4 things.
Yeah,
it's called full
That's okay.
immersion.
Full immersion.
and we
But I
haven't
just wanted to shoot
No,
you the idea about the harmonics. But this is subharmonics, which just means you don't sing the subharmonics, but it's the mirror of the harmonics is the subharmonics. So it's going down to the 15th harmonic, which I can not quite get there. I can go to about the 13th harmonic with my voice. But it's the inversion of that plus 1 note is what that scale is on. Print.
And who's the composer of this?
Brent Rogers.
Brent
He's the
Rogers.
guy
Brent Rogers.
that helped develop this instrument here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool.
He's a cool
He's
guy.
a local guy?
No.
Used to be.
He used to be. He decided this is enough for me. I'm going to go to work for IBM. And so, but he's selling computer software, huge mainframes.
What
is
city
he
does he live in?
He lives actually on the same island that a guy named Bill Gates lives on, Merritt Island, off of Seattle. It's sort of the La Jolla of Seattle, Merritt Island.
Okay.
And
And he does everything in C.
beautiful house that he and his wife Susie.
I never met him.
Oh,
I showed up here after he had gone, so.
oh yeah.
Never got
I
to
mean,
meet him.
he has.
This is nice. I like this stuff.
He writes
Yeah,
good
his stuff is very coherent, but
I like
it has real character to it.
And it's pretty much, a lot of it is based on Parch's tonality
Can,
diamond.
can you turn it up a little bit?
Yeah, hit the
Right
top
there.
button up there.
Wonderful.
He does all of his composing. You can kind of tell it's all kind of computer oriented, but it's very much alive. His stuff. that tremolo a lot.
I love the glissandos and the tremolo stuff.
Biased, I really want to put a beat in there. I wanna put.
Get a little
It does have, it
funk.
actually has a beat.
Right, I want to put bass on top.
More,
No, I know what you mean.
Something a little more funky.
yeah, it's a little antiseptic. The beat is a little antiseptic. It's very light.
Yeah.
It's still tick-tock. Yeah. Pretty good, huh?
Experiment with the drums, different type of scales too. Because the drums are tuned to make the same with the drums. It's gotta do with the drummer The goal of the project is to write a song like this. I'm already not able.
No, we're,
I already wrote a song. Pretty
No.
good.
no, we're
I'm just joking. I'm saying,
yeah.
But, oh, by the way,
yeah.
this is the website. Array Instruments. You should write that down on your.
Alright.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see you.
And the guy lives around the corner, Bill Wesley, who's the inventor of this instrument.
He invented it.
This instrument. The Amira. I mean, it comes from Africa, but I mean, the whole concept of putting all the fifths together like that and creating all of the.
So that was written with something similar to this. That the music, what is the instrument?
It's all electronic.
Oh,
electronic.
okay.
This one here?
The song that's playing.
Yeah.
It's all, he uses C sound. So it's all done on the computer.
Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, well,
This was just eating your lunch music.
okay.
What
But
is
it's
the,
interesting enough. The
like a digital performer type of.
No.
This is Tonescape.
You coded the program?
I didn't code it. I created it. I just coded parts of it. I had a partner who was really a programmer, and he's the one who put it all together. But the only code I wrote was just a few little pieces of it to do different
Alright. So
things.
what's the name
which
of the
one's
project?
yours, Joe? This? No, this is mine.
Yeah, I
Tonescape.
Tonescape. Tonescape.
Okay, we're on the Tonescape.
And basically, the reason I invented it is because I didn't want to deal with numbers. I got really
That
into
sounds like me.
microtonal music, and mainly from Parch's book, that one right there. I have my own copy. And I just started to expand his system. I wanted to be able to modulate from one tonality diamond into any of the notes that are in that tonality diamond. So I started calculating all these ratios, and then I realized there's got to be a better way to do this.
Right.
And so spent a long time, really long time, 15 years, trying to figure out how to do that, how to make a better diagram and a better way to deal with these ratios. Because when you're dealing with just intonation and ratios, if you recognize the 2-to-1 ratio as your interval of equivalence or identity interval, which normally we do, we call it the octave,
Right.
then having 2 in the ratios just gives you bigger, more complicated numbers to deal with that are totally unnecessary, because you're referring to everything within 1 octave anyway. Music theory always does that.
Yeah.
So, first thing I wanted to do was just factor out all the powers of 2, because it's completely unnecessary. So then eventually, after struggling with this for a long time, I realized that if you factor the ratios into all of the prime numbers that are in them, then you can think of each one as a dimension in space and create a diagram that models the tuning as a multi-dimensional space.
Wow.
And that's what this is. So this is pretty simple. It's just a 2-dimensional space, this one here.
So why don't you go to 12? Is that 12?
No, this is my bebop in 14 equal. I wanted to play something that
14
sounds
equal.
cool. Yep,
So the octave is divided into
14 equal
equal
steps.
spaces.
Yeah, and I have them numbered here. The notation I'm using
14
shows
through
you.
to 2.
Oh, we don't have sound on this one. I need to
so
flip.
that's just 2 more than the regular, so that's kind of,
Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't line up with the regular ones at all.
yeah.
It's completely
well,
different.
always like
Mhm.
Okay, I'm not
Yeah.
getting
that.
sound.
Yeah, I don't wanna.
Hey Brent,
Thank you.
how do I get sound out of this computer here?
The little button that says AV on the switcher.
Isn't it the Lin? I'm on the Windows
AV,
computer
but
now.
you're-
Oh, AV, right. Okay, you're right. I gotcha. There we go.
Right.
Thank you. Turn it down a little. So, I mean, I should probably show you simpler stuff, but I wanted to play something that sounds
Alright,
cool.
I'll do.
But what's interesting about this is that people pretty much dismiss 14 equal and don't use it because it doesn't give you a good approximation of fifths and fourths, the main ratios that have 3 in it. And I deliberately wrote this as a bebop thing that follows a blues progression just because it does fourths and fifths and still sounds like blues to me. You get the blues? Sounds like 1/4, 1/5, right? What I didn't do is jam on it yet. I want to do some jamming, soloing.
So it's all the keyboards too, you use, I mean, how did you play that?
I didn't play it. I just clicked.
Oh, it's
I
just
clicked the notes right on the
it's like
screen.
Fruity Loops, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I thought that this was just a sequencer thing that you
Yeah. Well, we never got to the point.
I thought it was that you play and then it transforms it for you and also
No.
you play,
Mhm.
click. That's why.
No, because it wouldn't know what.
yeah.
It wouldn't know how to
No, I thought
translate
you
the tuning.
assigned. I thought you had like a value with you assigned keys.
Mm-mm.
No, you didn't do that.
No. We never got to the point where you could plug in any MIDI device.
Right,
to
that's
do
what I
anything.
thought. Okay.
It's
okay.
all just right on the computer.
That's cool.
But so, that just proves that depending on the musical style, regardless of what a theorist says about a tuning, it still could work.
But it's subharmonic.
I mean, that sounds like it does a 1/4, 1/5 chord progression, and 14 equal is not supposed to be able to do that.
It's just a little more yellow.
Okay.
God, that was interesting.
That's what it seemed like to me.
Yeah.
It seemed very yellow.
Okay.
agree.
Well, anyway.
I mean, it sounds about right, but you can tell there's something that's not about right. You know what I mean?
It's like
For
a-
right, I mean the regular way.
It's kind of an umber
Mm-hmm.
yellow. Not a bright yellow, kind of a
Right.
earthy umber yellow.
Yeah, it's earthy, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
That's so cool.
I wouldn't normally start out showing you Tonescape or something like that, but I just wanted to give you some sounds.
Do you have the glass onion on there?
I don't have that in Tonescape. I did that before Tonescape existed. That's MIDI. That's just cakewalk. I did that. I should do it in
I don't do
Tonescape, though. I
MIDI
should
anymore.
redo
I
it.
hate MIDI.
I should redo that in here. So anyway, I think what I'll do is just create some stuff from scratch just to show you what's going on.
How can you get away from MIDI?
In
I
here?
use programs, well, for what I do, I use programs that they treat audio like MIDI. That's the next level.
Oh, okay, so you record everything digitally, just instead of using MIDI, you just record digitally.
Well, if you just to write stuff right now, there's programs that you just write. I write in audio, I don't write in MIDI. I just can't stand it.
Audio, write an audio?
We are in audio, and the audio kind of helps you to kind of put it, I mean, it treats kind of audio like MIDI. But the problem is that if you want to change sounds, you cannot do that. You know what I mean? Because MIDI, you just switch sounds.
Right, well, MIDI is not a recording.
Right, it's
It's
just
just
the data.
instructions on.
Right, the data. And without you, you're stuck with what you have. But still, you can treat it. I mean, so what I mean, you can, you know, synchronize it, do things like live. It's a program called Live.
Okay.
So you, I mean, I don't know how.
I still live, you know, when I was doing music stuff, it was
Well,
20
like
years ago.
the new people that do like, you know, techno music or what I do, they don't really use MIDI anymore. It's all, I mean, to me it's kind of like they're cheating, it's so much easier. But, you know.
Yeah, well, in computers, it's hard to even deal with MIDI on computers now
Right.
because everything's USB.
But we don't do it anymore. But it's cool for this product.
Well, this uses MIDI.
Right,
Tonescape
it's
is
cool.
MIDI.
It's cool for this product.
And, you know, we wanted to eventually develop it to the point where you could just output an MP3 file directly from it, but we never got that far either. But what you can do is export it to a MIDI file. I mean, it uses native format for when you compose a piece.
Right.
But you can export it to a MIDI file, and you can also export it to a C-sound file.
Okay.
We only have one C-sound instrument that we ever finished, which is an acoustic guitar sound. So if you know how to create C-sound instruments, then what's important? Well, what's important is that it creates the score for you. You don't have to mess with the score at all.
Right.
You put it in here, and it creates the C-sound score, and then you just put whatever instruments in it you want.
So what if you want to record vocals? And you ever thought about?
It doesn't record. It's just MIDI.
No, I mean, but I know, but
Then he'll have to use a program like yours.
You'd have
right.
to.
We dump it.
These
No, I'm
are-
just because I think it would be interesting to add human vocals.
This is, to me,
No, I
this
know- I
is
know
more
what-
of
I know what
a
this does.
educational tool or
It could be
composing
that,
tool
yeah.
or
No,
something.
I
like
got what this does. I'm already kind of moving. If we want to, we just we can just dump it to track and then we
Right, exactly.
record regularly. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The only problem with it works much better saving it as a C-sound file than saving it as a MIDI file.
Right.
Because MIDI only has 16 channels, and to do pitch bend in MIDI, every pitch bend command you send on a channel affects everything on that channel. So if you
Right.
have a whole bunch of stuff happening at the same time that's all retuned
That's why I don't
differently.
do MIDI.
Right, it gets really, it ends up getting, I can't say that it's hard to do because Tonescape does it all automatically for you. It uses dynamic channel allocation. But then when you go to look at the MIDI file, it won't make any sense to you because you're going to see notes all over the place with different instruments. So
No, I just,
it's just really hard to deal with. With C-Sound, it puts it out exactly the way you write it in Tonescape, and it tells C-Sound how to tune it
right. That would
on
be
each
cool.
part of the
Show
visual.
us something.
All right, well, what do you want me to do? Just demonstrate tuning? How much do you know about tuning? How advanced are you on that?
Pardon?
You know what
Nothing. I mean, I don't know.
You know what Pythagorean tuning is?
What?
Pythagorean? Three limit? We were talking about limits. You don't know about
I
that?
heard about it. No, it's better you
Jonathan,
Yeah?
you have a customer.
Oh, thank you.
pretend I don't know anything.
All right,
It's
well,
possibly the truth.
well, let's just start at the very beginning.
Hello.
I'll do this. I'll create a new tuning.
Okay.
Okay? So the first thing it says is, do you want an identity interval? You can either have one or not have one. So like for instance, in ancient Greek scales, they didn't really recognize the octave, so you wouldn't use one on an ancient Greek scale. But in today's music, we always use it. And it doesn't have to be two, it could be anything.
Thank you.
Okay.
But normally it's two. The 2-to-1 ratio is the octave. There are some other ideas about using a different equivalence interval. There's a scale called the Bowl and Pierce scale, which uses 3-to-1 as the equivalence interval. Brent has played around with using 5 as an equivalence interval.
I wish my
So
Spanish
there are
was
different things that you could do with
Hello,
that.
come on in.
Normally you'll just use 2. And to build a just intonation system, it's all based on prime factors. So since we're using 2 as what we call the identity interval, we don't normally show it on the lattice diagram. You can if you want to, but you normally don't because it just confuses things. So the first thing you need to do is set up generators. So far the only generator of your tuning you have is 2. And 2 gives you nothing but octaves. So if I don't pick any other numbers, I'm not going to be able to do anything with it except octaves. and they're all considered to be identical anyway.
Right.
So I need another generator so I can pick the next prime number if I want to. You don't have to use prime numbers as your generators, but that's what I'll do to create just intonation. So in Pythagorean tuning, you use 2 and 3 as your generators. And that's it, I'm going to stop there. Because that's what Pythagorean tuning does. They just decided, they realized that you can't get pitches that will make any kind of tune out of just octaves, out of 2. But once you use 3, then you can get a whole series of pitches. You can make a scale. So that's the oldest, as far as we know, it's the
So 3, what
oldest
does it
scale.
mean? That in one octave you got 3, what does it mean?
Prime number 3?
Yeah, you just pick number 3.
It's the third harmonic, the 3-to-1 ratio.
Okay, so
2-to-1 is the octave, and 3-to-1 is
the
a little bit higher than that, is an octave and a fifth.
I see, okay.
Okay, so,
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah.
but really what I'm talking about is using 2 and 3 as the generators of your tuning.
Right.
In other words, you can create ratios that have only 2 and 3 as factors.
Okay.
Okay, so if we go over here to the pitches tab, now we have 2 and 3. If we go to the pitches tab and I click add pitch, it automatically comes up with 0 and 0. This is what's called a prime exponent vector, or it's also known as a Monzo. There's a guy who named it after me because I wrote a paper saying that we should use that for notation, and he wanted a short name for it, so he named it after me. So tuning theorists now are calling this a Monzo. And what it means is you're showing only the exponents of the prime factors. You're not showing the bases of the primes themselves, just to simplify things. So you see a list of numbers, and you know already in advance that it represents the exponent of 2, the exponent of 3, of 5, of 7, 11, 13, 17, and so on, all the way through the prime series. So here, we're only using 2 factors, 2 and 3, so that's what you see there. And if we start with 0 and 0, what that means is 2 to the 0 power times 3 to the 0 power. And any number to the 0 power equals 1, so that's the 1-to-1 ratio, your origin point. So I just type enter and put it in, and there it is on the lattice. That's the origin of my lattice, the 1-to-1 ratio. So if I want, now everything's going to stay within 1 octave. All the notes that we get will be in 1 octave, like 1 reference octave, because we're using 2-to-1 as our identity interval. We are using 1, so we're going to keep everything in 1 octave. So after 1-to-1, the next simplest ratio would be 2-to-1, and that's the octave. The next simplest one would be 3-to-1, but that's more than an octave, so we want to bring that down into the reference octave, so we divide it in half. So that would be the 3-to-2 ratio. So I can add that in. So what is 3-to-2? It's 3 over 2, or 3 divided by 2. 3 is in the numerator, so that's 3.
1.5.
It's 1.5, but we're interested in the ratios. We're interested in the numbers that are in the terms of the ratio. So 3 is in the numerator, and that's 3 to the first power. And 2 is in the denominator, so that's 2 to the -1. So on this Monzo, or this prime exponent vector, we would type in -1 and 1.
Okay.
Do you follow that so far? Okay. And since 2 is... well,
Well, I have to absorb it and I'll
It's,
translate.
I
I
don't
have to absorb.
expect you to be,
Yeah,
you're
no,
not
no,
gonna be
just-
tested on
but
this.
you can watch the video.
I want to follow, yeah.
You can watch the video and study it over and over again. It's real simple though, it's a fraction. Any number that's in a denominator gets a negative exponent.
Right.
Any number in the numerator gets a positive exponent.
Right.
So 2 is in the denominator, so it's 2 to the -1.
All right.
3 is in the numerator, so it's 3 to the 1.
All right.
So the Monzo would be -1 and 1. The
Okay.
2 gets a -1 and the 3 gets a 1. But since we're using 2 as an identity vector, and we're not really considering it, you don't even need to figure out what it is. All that you're concerned about is the prime numbers 3 and above. And in this tuning, that 3 is all you need to know about. You don't need to be concerned about anything else except the power of 3.
Okay.
So I can just go over here and type in, instead of even bothering with the power of 2, I can just type a 0, and Tonescape will figure out what it's supposed to be, and then a 1. So if I type 0, 1, now it puts a new note on my lattice. And you can see, let me go to the lattice.
I see. I get the concept.
Okay, it says 3-to-2, it's a 3-to-2 ratio, and it shows you all the information over here. These are just the numbers of notes in the scale. So it's going to order them in pitch. The first one is always called 0, and the next one is 1. The Monzo shows you 2 to the negative 1 times 3 to the 1. Over here, we put it in ratio format. 3 to the first divided by 2 to the first. So you can see exactly in mathematical terms what this represents. And then over here, this is the ratio, 3 over 2. And then over here, this is the sense value. We give you that as a reference so that you have a logarithmic sense of where it is in the octave. Okay, and you can click on them here and listen to them. And you see they light up on the lattice. And I can also just do it over here too. I can click on it and leave it sounding, or I can just mouse over it and it will sound when the mouse is over it. So I have 2 notes here. So what's the next simplest ratio after 3 to 2? 4 to 3. So what is 4 to 3? Let's add a new pitch.
Keys are hanging out.
We don't have to be concerned about what 2 is, so all that matters is that there's a 3 in the denominator, and that's a negative 1. So we type a 0 for the power of 2, and a negative 1 for the power of 3, and enter it, and it gives us 4 to 3. So now we have 3 notes in our little scale, and they sound like this. So little by little, we're developing a scale. And what we're making here is what's called a chain of fourths and fifths. You're probably familiar with circle of fifths, but it's not a circle until you change the tuning of it to make 12-tone equal temperament. As long as it's real just intonation or real Pythagorean tuning, it's not a circle. If you try to imagine it as a circle, it ends up being a spiral, because when you come close to where you started from, it's almost the same point, but not exactly, right? But anyway, I'll just keep going. So the next simplest ratio after 4 to 3 would be 5 to 3, but we're not using 5. We're limiting ourselves only to 3, 2 and 3. So the next one would be 6 to 3, and that's just an octave.
So this is a 3 limit.
3 limit, exactly. We're using prime factors 2 and 3, and that's it. So the next simplest one after 5 to 3 would be 6 to 3, and that reduces to 2 to 1, so that's our octave. So we're done. There are no more ratios that we can come up like that with 3 in the denominator.
Everything goes up. If you do 7, it goes higher than 3.
Well, 7.
Well,
Yeah,
we're
7
staying
on
within the octave, so
Right.
if 3 is our denominator, we can't do anything beyond that. So
And you
next
can-
we can try 4 as a denominator, so what do we
cannot
get?
Well, you just need integers, right? You can do like 1.2, 1.3.
Right, no, they're just integer.
Right.
And the important thing is that if you look at the Monzo thing here, what you're seeing is 3 to the negative first and 3 to the first. So what's going to happen is we're building a scale along this line or this dimension. So the next step in the scale will obviously be 3 squared and 3 to the minus 2.
Right.
That's the next thing. So without going through the whole thing about the next simplest ratio, but we can't use that number because it's not within our limit or it's beyond the octave or whatever, you can see that the next one is going to be 3 to the second power. So if I put that in, I'll just type a 0 and a 2. And Tonescape figures out what the power of 2 is. So that's this 9-8 ratio. So put it in its proper place here. Then you see it dynamically renumbers the notes in the scale as you add notes. You know, if they fall in between notes that are already there, it'll just change the numbering of the notes that are in there. So this is the 9-8 ratio, which is known as the whole step, or the major second. And then if I go to the other side, I'm just going to keep it symmetrical. I don't have to, but just for the purposes of demonstrating, it's nice to do it symmetrically. So there I'll type 0 and comma negative 2. And that gives me the inverse of the 9 to 8, the 16 to 9. Okay, the inverse of it would be 8 to 9, but to bring it up into the octave we want it in, we have to multiply
It has
the
to be
numerator by 2.
Yeah, the top one has to be larger than the bottom,
So now, I think I need to
but
widen
not
this
more
a
than
little.
twice as large.
So now we actually have a pentatonic scale. Well, that's too high. We have 5 notes we can play around with. The basis of 99% of all the world's music, right there. Simple Pythagorean pentatonic scale. Even today, still. When you hear pop music, almost everything that people are singing, it uses that scale right there. Or something
Where's
close.
the 1-4-5, man? Rock and roll.
You can't get chords out of this like that. You can get, let's see what chords I could get. There's
There
a
you go.
chord.
The major.
That's one chord, but that's the only real triad I can get.
Unless you go outside of the octave.
Right. Well, no, even, the notes are just not, they're just not set up to give us regular triads. Because there's a lot of seconds in there. A lot of seconds in this scale. So anyway, we could keep on going. If you want me to, I will.
Yeah, just show another one.
So,
You gonna change the limit, or?
well, I wanted to explain the Pythagorean comma first.
Okay.
So if I just keep going, I'll do 0 and 3. Zero, -3. So that's a 7-note scale. So here I could actually get chords. I could get lots of chords with this one. I'll tell you what, let's make things easy for me. Well, for everybody. Instead of looking at the ratios, we could do regular old music notation. It's based on A because historically that's what they started on. But here you can get lots of chords. C major, D major, E minor. Let's see, you'll get an F sharp diminished. G major, A minor, and B minor. So basically what you have here is a Pythagorean tuning of a G major scale. Or E natural minor, whichever way you want to look at it. But most people
And
would
this
probably
is
think
just.
this is Pythagorean. It's not what's usually called just intonation because that implies ratios that have 5 in it. It is just.
It's the
but
integer ratios.
they're ratios. It is just, but just intonation usually implies 5 limit.
5 limit.
This is strictly Pythagorean. Yeah.
So, see, I didn't know that. I didn't realize that people were saying, to me, just intonation just meant integer ratios.
Yeah, there's been big debate about that on the tuning list on the internet. So the consensus pretty much, some people still argue that anything that uses ratios is just intonation, but the general consensus is that if it's 3 limit, call it Pythagorean. If it's 5 limit, call it just intonation. If it's beyond 5, call it extended just or just rational intonation. Because some people, believe it or not, a Hammond organ is a rational intonation. It's technically a just intonation, but it uses ratios which emulate 12 equal.
A Hammond organ is
Yeah.
a just.
It's technically just intonation, yeah, but it uses really high prime ratios that emulate 12
Just check
equal.
on my dog, just.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've come up with the term rational intonation to talk about a case like that where it's not being used as just intonation at all, but it is technically ratios. That's what it is, integer ratios. So we have these 4 levels: Pythagorean, just, extended just, and rational.
Let's wait till Aunt gets back.
All right.
She's checking on her.
You can pause the video. Everybody in my family pronounces it Monzo, so.
Yeah, well, that's the same. My family, everybody says Maslanka.
Right.
And it's not Maslanka, it's Mashlanka. That's the correct pronunciation.
That's why I shortened my name to 3 letters.
So,
But that sounds too much like my schlonga.
Mashlonga. You're on tape.
I'm sorry.
okay, so
Anyway, that's pretty interesting.
we're just going along here. I just kept on adding notes. And I moved it up there because it's a very linear kind of a tuning. It's all just one-dimensional like this. I just kept on going. I want to show you.
So how many are you planning?
I went from I'm going from -6 to +6.
How come it doesn't look like a line anymore? It looks like a curve.
Well,
this way?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's just the way the 3D graphics.
So,
Let me see if I can fix that. I can try flat. None of this. Well, I don't know. This is what it is. It's an artifact of the 3D effects.
All right.
But it goes from E flat on this side to
can you help?
No, I got it.
B on that side. No, F sharp. Oh, wait a minute. Where am I going? The D sharp, okay? So now you see we have an E flat and a D sharp.
Let me see if we're still getting the picture in the
So-
camera here, the back here.
You can hear that that's fourths and fifths, right? On this side, okay, but we have a D sharp here and an E flat here, and they're not the same,
Right.
okay?
So, but you're gonna arrange them after you're done with your proportions. Are you gonna arrange them in a let's say
Circle?
Spiral?
no, like from a lower frequency to a higher frequency, or you just
Well, I
they're
can-
not lined up, right?
Right, if I was gonna, I'm just creating a tuning. There are three
Right.
different kinds of files you create with Tonescape. You can create a tuning, or a musical piece, which is when you're actually composing, or a tone space. And the tone space is the most interesting one, because that's where you really get into the mechanics of
Right.
how the tunings, how temperaments work. I'm just creating a simple tuning right here. So it just keeps it lined up in the lattice order. So we're using 3 as our factor, and it just has all the
Right.
pitches
Doesn't
lined up
care,
as
yeah.
powers of 3. If I were to compose a piece with this
Then you
tuning,
have to
then
line
well
up.
then you would see the pitches lined up. Then you would
Yeah.
get that other in the other window.
All right.
Okay. But what I wanted to show you is that you have 2 notes here that are not quite the same, the E flat and the D sharp. Now if I change my notation into cents, which is something we commonly use, you can see what they are. D sharp is 600 and something, 612 cents. And the E flat on the other side is, it gets really hard to manipulate these 3 limit systems because they're so long. That 588. So
That's actually pretty different.
it's pretty different, but not that much.
Not that much,
It's
but-
24 cents, which is about a quarter of a semitone, an
So
eighth
I
of
mean,
a
it's
tone.
audible. I mean, you can.
It's
hear-
audible,
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
yeah.
You can hear that.
Yeah.
So if I like, let's go back to the music notation again, and I'll make chords with it. Let's try a chord that goes C, E flat, D, G, a C minor chord. Okay, that's the Pythagorean minor chord. If I use D sharp instead, I get something that sounds a lot different. And in fact, that's actually a lot closer to the just minor third. That's historically how the 5 limit got introduced, because composers started realizing that if they extended the Pythagorean chain out long enough, they got other notes that were like other versions of notes that they had that were more dissonant. So I'll show you a 5 limit system next, but you'll see that this D sharp over here is very similar to the 5 limit in E flat, and it sounds almost the same. There's only
No,
2.
I meant like it's audible. It's not like
Well,
it's 1 point. That it's
Right,
like,
right. Well, if I do the 5 limit system, the difference between that E flat and this D sharp is only 2 cents, so that's not really audible.
Right, that's not audible, right?
I won't say it's not audible, but
Well, just
it
depends on the ears.
Depends on the ears and the style of music, the tempo.
Right.
It depends on a lot of things. Yeah. But it's a lot less audible than this one.
Right.
So this is called the Pythagorean comma. A comma basically is a generic term that means any real small interval, and that one's called the Pythagorean comma. Now, what I really want to show you
The
is
Pythagorean comma is between what notes?
it's between any notes that are 13 steps apart. On
13 steps.
On the 3
Pythagorean,
bases,
yeah.
on the 3 axes.
13 steps, so that's an important number.
Right, if you consider that to be a unison vector, which is a term we use a lot, then you get what's known as a Fokker periodicity block, but it's not really a block here because it's just a line, but you get a limited thing of 12 pitches. Because what you're saying is if 13 steps along the axis is considered to be a unison, then any notes that are separated by 13 steps are considered a unison, which means you only get 12 different ones.
So what you're showing is that the octaves aren't exactly the same.
Not the octaves. It's not octaves. We are using octaves as identities here. What I'm showing you is that 12 steps along the 3-axis are not exactly the same in Pythagorean tuning. They're separated by a Pythagorean comma, 24 cents roughly.
So that the 12 steps are that's the 13th step.
Right. The 13th step is the one that's almost the same as the one you started from, but not quite. In other words, if I start at this end and just go through the whole series, you'll just hear fourths and fifths. But the ending one and the beginning one are not the same.
Yeah.
But they should be.
Well,
In
not
12,
that they
yeah.
should
12
be.
they're the
In 12 they
same.
would be. Yeah, in 12 equal they would be. I would like to show you, before I go to 5 limit, what I'd really like to show you is where 12 equal comes from. Because it comes from tempering out that Pythagorean comma. If you shave 2 cents approximately off of each of those fourths and fifths, then when you get to the end, you've lost the 24-cent difference and you are back at the same note you started from.
So you're shaving 2 cents off of each one of them?
Each fourth and fifth along the way, yeah.
Each fourth and fifth.
I mean, the only reason why you could think of it as a chain of fifths if you're going that way, or a chain of fourths if you're going that way. The only reason we are using fourths and fifths is because we're staying within one octave. We keep on dropping notes up and down an octave just to keep everything within one octave. You understand that, or are you lost?
I get, it's like when you hear a language that you know half, and it's like Spanish for me.
Yeah.
I know some and I get it,
Yeah.
but then I don't get exactly everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I get it.
Well, it's
I
a
get,
new
I
language.
get what you make sense to you.
Well,
I
let's-
get what you say makes sense, but if you say repeat, I say, oh my god. But I get.
Let's look at let's look at the sense values again, and maybe you can get a handle on this. Right? If you look at this side.
No, I get the mathematics you did, and I get that.
Well, if you look at this side, okay, I've made a symmetrical scale. You don't have to do it that way. You can start
Right.
anywhere
Right.
and go, one direction or both directions. But if you take 2 cents off of each of these, instead of 702, you get 700. Then on the next one, instead of 204, you would get 200. Right?
Right.
Because you'd be going from, this one takes off 2 cents, this one takes off 4 cents, this one would take off 6 cents, and so on, until this one takes off 12 cents. So the cents values you get would be 700, 200, 900, 400, 1100, and 600.
Makes sense.
And if you do the other way, same thing, you're adding 2 cents to each of those. And the only reason you're adding is because you're going the opposite way.
That makes sense if you have a really 12 tone, because everybody has this 12.
Right, everybody
So-
thinks of things in terms of 12
Right.
equal, right. That's why I like to do this first, because this
Mhm.
gives you an idea of what's going on here.
But those aren't the notes in the 12th tone either.
No, they're not. This is Pythagorean tuning. Yeah. But
Well, but when you shave the cents off of it, it's still not the 12 notes.
it would be if I actually changed it into that tuning, Is that what?
Are those, you have major thirds and minor sixths in this?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I was playing a chord for you, remember? Let's go back to the music notes.
I thought this was a chain of fifths.
It is a chain of fifths, but you have all the different notes in here, right? Like A is our reference point. Let's start with A. Well, what's the second above A? B.
All right. Well, I'm starting to get back to the circle of fifths. Circle of fifths builds all the notes, right?
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And this is the chain that builds all the notes, but they're
It's still it's just,
Pythagorean.
Right.
so it's not quite a circle.
It's the same. Right. It's not a circle because
Because they don't meet.
the two endpoints are slightly different.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you get the 12
All right.
different notes in
You're,
between.
you're jogging my
It's like a
memory
big-
here.
big spiral.
In other words, if I kept on going,
I love it.
let's say I went 12 more. Well, I'd end up with a whole new set of 12 more notes that are all one Pythagorean comma away from these 12. So you get
They're all 24 cents away.
Right, you get two chains of semitones, basically, that are very close together.
Okay.
And there's a Arabic scale that I have on this instrument
It's based
You know,
on
I
17.
just want you to say that.
Yeah.
that is basically
17
17
tones of
notes of this chain of fifths.
Mhm.
Right. I was
Yeah, I
thinking
could play
about
it.
of the Arabian stuff.
But this thing that I just showed you is where the 5 limit came from. This thing of realizing